Merry Christmas! We are going to be counting down the top 10 Christmas movies of all time. Let's see if your favorite made number one. Before we get to that, make sure you go into the description and click on the link for a free Epic Fantasy ebook. Also remember to subscribe to this channel for more amazing content. So now, let's go. Welcome back to Great Stories Change the World, the YouTube channel where a fantasy science fiction author, that's me, goes over media, movies, books, TV shows, and talks about great stories. Because yes, I do believe that we should tell great stories because they do change people's lives and they change the world. So today we're going to finish out my top 21 Christmas movie list. We're going to do the top 10 today. So let's just jump into it. Look at the other video if you want to kind of see where we've been up until now and talk about some Christmas movies. But let's get to the top 10. All right, number 10, we have Ernest Saves Christmas from 1988. Now this is Jim Varney. And if you know anything about Ernest, right, he was kind of in the 80s and the early 90s, and he did a lot of commercials, and he had this friend, Vern, and he was a great character actor, and he was kind of a gimmick for a lot of things, but man, he worked that gimmick. And he had Ernest Goes to Camp. That was the first movie that he made, and it was a family favorite. We loved that movie, as bad as it might have been. And then they came out with Ernest Saves Christmas. Now, this is a great movie, and it might be the most underrated Christmas movie of all time. It made my top 10 because, man, as a writer, I am continually amazed when I watch this movie that they take this gimmicky character and they actually put a great, heartwarming, funny, interesting movie around him. So the writers did a great job, and it was from 1988. Ernest Saves Christmas. We watch it every year, or at least I do, and it's one of my favorites. All right, so number 9, we have, also from 1988, we have Die Hard. Now, a lot of people argue, is this a Christmas movie? Even Bruce Willis said famously, it is not a Christmas movie. I say it is. And I think a lot of people will say that it is a Christmas movie for a couple different reasons. Yes, it happens around Christmas, and there's the Christmas party, and so there's some of those elements to it. And yet, I really think the theme of the movie, I know it's an action movie, and I know there's shooting, and there's all sorts of fun stuff, and yippee-ki-yay, but when you get down to it, the theme of the movie is John trying to fight for his wife, for his family, for the lives of other people, and trying to save them, and that is Christmas. That is what we celebrate with Christmas, that Jesus came to the world to save us and all of that sort of stuff, right? That's the Christian belief. And so here we are with Die Hard, and he is fighting for the life of the people that he loves. So it's got a family element to it. It's got this reconciliation, restoration of his marriage sort of element to it. And I think it is a Christmas movie. And it is Bruce Willis's kind of main star sort of franchise. This is what really propelled him into being one of the biggest movie stars of all time. And here we are. That's my number 9, Die Hard, 1988. For number 8, we have Christmas Vacation, and this came out in 1989. I'm not trying to put all these together on purpose, but it just kind of happened. But here we have Chevy Chase, and he made a few great movies, a lot of really not great movies. Fletch and Christmas Vacation and the Christmas, National Lampoon's Vacation movies are probably his best work. Of course, there was the original Vacation, and then, of course, they went to Europe, and then they did Christmas Vacation. And John Hughes, I read an article, kind of an old interview of his, where he said, he really wasn't into making sequels. You didn't see a lot of sequels like Pretty in Pink 2, Breakfast Club 2. But, these movies, especially these, Christmas movies, were so huge that, they just kept throwing money at him to make these sequels, and so he did. And thank God he did, because Christmas Vacation is one of the funniest. You had Beverly D'Angelo as his wife. You had Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie. All the characters are there. They kept, bringing in different kids to play the kids, which I always thought was actually funny, even when it was happening. I thought that was really fun. But here we have a great movie, a lot of great lines. This is a classic, and some people would put it higher on the list. I just couldn't because of what's ahead of it, but it is definitely up there. Number 8, sorry, Christmas Vacation. So here at number 7, we have 1983, A Christmas Story. Now, this came out, like I said, 1983, and it's still gets a lot of love, man. I think TBS or TNT, they just play it all Christmas Day because it is a classic. And when we were growing up, so I grew up after this movie came out, you know, the whole tongue on the flagpole scene, a lot of the lines, the bunny, him coming down in the bunny suit because some crazy aunt gave him, or whoever it was, gave him this present. We all remember all of these things. We related to this movie as kids, and it is still a classic. And really, honestly, the sequel that they just made that HBO put out, A Christmas Story Christmas or whatever it was, with a lot of the original cast back, I actually really liked it. I thought they did a really nice job with it, and they did a couple creative things and made a really good movie out of it. So check that out if you haven't on HBO Max, or just check out A Christmas Story, and probably it'll be on sometime on Christmas Day, all right? So that's number 7. Number 6, we have Home Alone. This came out in 1990. This is John Hughes again. Now, Macaulay Culkin was in like Uncle Buck, and he had been in a couple movies, and John Hughes kind of really liked him, and John Hughes had done Uncle Buck as well with John Candy and all that stuff. So he had some experience with John Hughes and Macaulay Culkin, and so I don't know how much he just wrote it for this guy or kind of had the idea, and but it was kind of a perfect storm. Like, cute kid, lots of personality, a screenwriter, producer, director at the top of his game, writing this thing. It was directed by Chris Columbus, not the guy who discovered America, but Chris Columbus, the director who went on to Harry Potter and some other things. So this is just kind of a lot of quality together. We have, not only Macaulay Culkin, but we had Joe Pesci, and we had Daniel Stern, and one of my favorite comedic actresses, Catherine O'Hara, is in this, and she plays the mom, and she is so amazing. She's been amazing in a lot of things. She's kind of from that old SCTV days, and John Candy plays a great bit role in this as well, in this movie. So there you go, Home Alone. Some people might think it has a plot hole about when he could have called the police and when the phone lines are down, yet he's ordering pizza. And so there's some funny memes going on around about that, but I still dig this movie. We watched it the other night. Number 5, we have Miracle on 34th Street. This is the original, 1947. I know they did not a sequel, but kind of a redo in the 90s. They did another version. It was basically the same story. It wasn't shot for shot, but it was really the same story, and they did a great job with it. But I always go back to the original because, I mean, you had Maureen O'Hara, who was one of my favorite actresses. She was also in The Quiet Man, which is one of my favorite movies with John Wayne. It might be John Wayne's best movie, maybe. Searchers and stuff is in there as well. But she's great in this, and it's got Natalie Wood, child star, and of course there's some tragic things that happened to her, so it's a little tragic when you watch this movie, for me, because I know some of that history. But everyone in this movie is great. The Santa Claus is great. All the different character actors do a great job, and it just moves well. It's written well. And so this was 1947, Miracle on 34th Street. A year earlier, another movie came out, and this is my number 4, It's a Wonderful Life. This was in 1946, and it's James Stewart and Donna Reed are the two main characters here. Donna Reed plays Mary. And this was a flop when it came out. You may not know that, but it did not do well when it came out. It was kind of a flop. And even though I had a lot of big names attached to it, Jimmy Stewart was a household name, it just didn't do well in the box office. But as the years went on and they started showing it around Christmas time, because it's really not a full-on Christmas movie, but there's the one scene towards the end where he's going through town yelling Merry Christmas, so they started showing it and associating it with Christmas, and it has become a classic. But when you look at it, even though it flopped, you look at this movie, I still watch this movie as a writer, and I say, this is a perfect movie. Every line is great. The pacing is great, but they also take time for every little moment. And James Stewart's acting in this movie is so phenomenal. He does the whole range. It gets really dark there towards the middle where, you know, people don't remember him, and Mary, who he loves, and she screams, and he gets suicidal, and like, what's going on? And yet, man, you just go through that flow of it, you know, it's darkest, but then there's hope, and it's a great movie. It is literally one of the perfect movies, one of those perfect movies that have been made. So that's my number 4, It's a Wonderful Life. Number 3 is not a full-on movie, but it is kind of a cartoon special. And I've only got a couple of them here. I had Rudolph earlier, but this is The Grinch Stole Christmas. And this is one of my favorite specials. It has everything. This is Dr. Seuss. This is Boris Karloff. This is Chuck Jones from the Looney Tunes doing the animation. Like, everything works with this. And it's funny, and it's heartwarming, and it's short, and it's one of those specials that we watch every year. But even looking back at it now, like, there's some of those specials that I used to love, like Frosty the Snowman, and they really weren't that good. Like, when you look at them now as a writer and as an adult, it's just, some of it doesn't hold up. But How the Grinch Stole Christmas holds up, and it's just, all of it works together. Genius writer, genius animation, great vocals, great song, You're the Mean One, right? It's amazing. All of it's great. Now going to number 2, Elf. Now this is one of the more modern ones. So by the time Elf came out in 2003, it was kind of a perfect storm as well. But a lot of people didn't really give it a chance at first, like leading up to it coming out. Will Ferrell did not like this movie. He did not like being in it. Obviously, he was contractually obligated to be in it. He signed a contract, but he really thought his movie career was going to be over, like running around in this elf costume. You had this brand new director, Jon Favreau, who had done some stuff like Swingers and some indie stuff. But he, so he was known as an actor and director, but like, to do a movie this big, he just had this great vision. But man, they created a new instant classic in 2003. I remember when it came out and we watched it, and I remember thinking, they did it. Like, Jon Favreau and Will Ferrell, they did it. They made an instant classic that is obviously right up there. This is my number 2. Like, it's up there with It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street and Rudolph. It's up there with all the classics, and they made a modern classic. And so Elf is up there, and of course James Caan is in it, and it's got some, it's got some great actors that plays the different parts. The casting is amazing. You had Peter Dinklage in it. You had Bob Newhart was amazing. And Zooey Deschanel, I messed that name up, I'm sure, but she was amazing in it. So it had everything, and it's one of the ones we have to watch every year. It might be the first one we watch every year, and I'm not alone. We talk to people; they say it is too. Now here we get to the final one, 1965. My number 1 is the Charlie Brown Christmas Special. All right, it's number 1. Elf almost makes it. Grinch almost makes it. Man, they're all so close here at the top 5 or 10. You could really mix and match and mix them up however you want. But for me, Charlie Brown Christmas Special is up there. It was unique. No one had done this. Now, again, there were a couple of Christmas specials already. Like, like you had The Grinch Stole Christmas was 66, which is a year after Charlie Brown. You had Rudolph, which was a little earlier, 63 or 4, I think. But once you get to this special, he really tried to do something different with this special. Like, there hadn't been any Charlie Brown, specials or cartoons yet. There was a famous comic strip in the newspaper, and so there was a lot of knowledge about it. There was branding and knowledge about what it was, and yet the fact that the choices that he made for jazz, for a jazz soundtrack, I mean, using Christmas carols and this kind of new jazz piano sort of thing. Vince Guaraldi, I think was his name, right? And the fact that he used real kids as the voices, the fact that he actually put in there scripture, like he just told the Christmas story but didn't tell it like in a new way. He just kind of quoted, what's Christmas all about? Does anybody know? And Linus says, I know what Christmas is all about, and he just reads from Luke, and it's straight out of the Bible. And they almost didn't air this because of that. And that's in 1965. It was not like this was more recent, where the people are even more hostile sometimes to religion. This is 1965, and they still didn't know what to do with this thing. And yet it has become one of the most watched, if not the most watched, Christmas special movies of all time. And it is the best. The animation, the music, the acting, the writing, all of it comes together, and the message, he put it all together in a way that has meaning, and all the stuff about the Christmas tree, and maybe it just needs a little love, and there's just so many parts of this that it's so deep within 25 minutes. That's good writing. So if you want to know what good writing is, watch especially some of these shorter specials where you look at it and you go, man, they put so much depth in such a tight amount of time. It's beautiful. Now, that's my top 10. Now, again, like I said, you could mix these up a little bit. I probably wouldn't argue too much. This is my top 10, but this is a great top 10, right? Like, these are the ones that I watch every season, okay? Now, hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of my top 10. Did your number one make it? Would you have kind of mixed some of these around? Did I leave a movie off that you really liked, that you thought, man, you left this one off of your list? I really thought you were going to talk about this one. So let me know in the comments, all right? And remember to subscribe. And I hope you have a great Christmas. I will see you in 2023, all right? Peace.